Hi, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the statement of information with the state of California. You have to file your statement of information within, 90 days of setting up your entity. And then if you're a corp, you have to do an annual refiling or renewal of that. And if you're an LLC, you have to do the renewal every 2 years. So I'm going to actually be doing like just an annual renewal update of an account, but while I do it, I'll sort of walk you through it as if you were running into it for the first time as like an initial filing. So hopefully this will be helpful for people needing to do this. See you in the video. Thanks. I'm Joe DeSanto, by the way. I'm an independent CFO and business consultant. I actually spent most of my career in Los Angeles building a few multi-million-dollar businesses, and I've since semi-retired, and now I help other businesses and individuals manage their money and plan better for their future. So if you're interested in small business, personal finance, and real estate advice, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks. So the annual filing, or statement of information is called, is actually a Secretary of State filing. And usually when you set up an entity, you kind of have two departments you're dealing with. You use the Secretary of State for the filing of the entity, and often, maybe the annual statement of information, which essentially is conveying like the basic information of the entity to the state, the address, the registered agent, and so on. You also often deal with the Department of Taxation if you're doing payroll, say, and you're collecting taxes on paychecks and having to send them in, or if there is an annual excise tax for your entity in the state, like in California, there's an annual minimum tax just for having the entity. It's $800, and you send that to what's called the Franchise Tax Board. But anyway, so we're going to do this filing, the Statement of Information, which is also an annual requirement, but it happens on the Secretary of State website. So if you know your entity number, well, I'm going to start out just by going California Secretary of State Statement of Info. And we probably should get something. Statement of Info filing tips. Here we go. California Secretary of State. File online. So that's what we're going to do. And we come over here to this area of the Secretary of State website where you can do business filings, which would include forming an LLC, forming a corp, trademark, UCC filings. But here you can see statement of information. It's pretty prominent because, it's an annual requirement. And the fee when you file it is usually, I think it's about $20 or something like that. In this case, it's going to be a corp, not an LLC, or an Inc., as I like to say. It's a little confusing sometimes now. LLCs can be C corps or S corps, so it's kind of confusing sometimes to just say corp or LLC. I often say LLC or Inc., I-N-C. Okay, so you come over here, and it not as clear where the filing is. Over here it says File Statement of Information. You click that. And it's going to give you the opportunity to do a search for the business. Like if you don't know like the corp number or whatever, you can just search for the business by name and locate it that way. I'm going to do that here. This company is called NitRam Industries, and here this is the one that I'm going for. As you can see, there's a few different NitRam Industries, and one, you would almost think they're the same company, but having a comma in your name or not is actually a way to make a distinction of a corporate name. So this one is NitRam Industries, no comma, INC period. And that is the one I'm going to do the statement of info on. Now, if you click on that over here, it actually gives you some status information. And in this case, it's in good standing and so on. The reason you would end up out of good standing is because you've failed to file your annual statement of information, or perhaps you have some back taxes or something to that effect. This statement of information is due on October 31st, 2023. Okay. So what we're going to do here is hit request access, and up is going to come this login. Now, so I'm a third party essentially that am filing the statement of information on their behalf. So I have my own account. You basically have to just set up an account and through which you can do your filings. I set up the account with my email, my information. If you're doing this for your own corp or own LLC, you can put in your own information, but you do need to set up an account. Okay, so now that I've logged in, it's actually now asking me to do the search again. If I had saved that corp number, I could have pasted that in, but I know that I can always search by name, so I just do it that way. So now that I'm logged in, you're going to see that it has more options for me here. And file statement of information is an option. If you're doing this for the first time, it's going to be exactly the same process. It's just that for this renewal, all of the information from last year is going to be pre-filled into all the places. If you're doing it for the first time, you're going to be entering information for the first time. So, I'll just walk you through it, even though in this case, much of the info is going to be in there already. But everything should look the same in terms of accessing the entity to do the filing. Okay, so it walks you through it pretty easily here. You have to do a privacy warning. Okay, I've read the privacy warning. Submitter info. In this case, I'm going to put my name in there because I'm submitting. All right. Entity details. This will be pre-filled in even if it's a new entity because you've accessed this through the process of looking up the entity, bringing it up initially, and then submitting hitting the submit file button. So this is going to be grayed out similar. Okay, street of principal address and corporation. So obviously that will be the street of principal office and corporation. Now, if it's a consulting corp and it's just you, most likely that would be your home address. But if you actually do have an office where you operate out of, you want to put that address in here. Now, that said, if you're like, hey, I have an office, but I like all this kind of mail to go to my home just so I don't miss it or whatever, you can put your office address up here, and then you can put your mailing address down here, which could be your home or whatever. So, and sometimes, there's a third option down here, Street of California office. So you might have a corporate office where like if you're a restaurant, for example, your corporate office might be a particular location where you do all the paperwork, but the actual operation of the business is the restaurant, and that would be wherever the restaurant is. And then you could also, again, have the mailing address be your home or the restaurant or the corporate office. So that's this information. As you can see, it's already filled in because it's defaulted from last year. Okay, the officers. In a corporation, you have to have officers, meaning you have to have at least, I believe, a CEO and a secretary. If it's an LLC, you have members, and this would probably say members. So in this case, there's two owners, and I'm obviously blurred all this out, but there's two owners, and one of them we have as the chief executive officer, one we have as the secretary. Now, if it's just you and it's a corp, meaning an INC, you can be the CEO, CFO, and secretary, all you. So many of my clients who are just consultants and they have their own consulting corp, we have their name in for everything, and we use their home address as the officer address. If you did, you can also use your work address or the business address, or if there's a separate corporate office, you can use that address as well. So that's where you would put the officers in. here you can add more officers if you want. I don't think if you didn't put in a CEO or a secretary, it would probably prompt you to do that. Oftentimes we'll put in CEO, CFO, and secretary, kind of the main three officers. You can have additional officers as well. There could be a vice president, for example, but you don't need a vice president. So directors with corps or INCs, you have officers and the board of directors. So if you've ever heard the term there, chairman and CEO, well, that person is both the chief executive officer of the company and also chairman of the board. With public companies, the board has a certain role, and the officers have a certain role, and oftentimes they're there to check each other. Obviously, in a single member corp, you're going to be the CEO, CFO, secretary, and singular board member. But you do need to have at least one board member if you're an Inc. If you're an LLC, I believe you will only they will only require you to enter members here. Though, frankly, I can't remember off the top of my head. They might also ask you to put a director in. And so you have one director, and then the number of vacancies on the board is 0, and then you can move on. Okay, agent for service of process, otherwise called the registered agent. Basically, each state requires you to have a registered agent for your corp or LLC in the state. So, because, as you probably know, you can go open a corp in any state, even though you're living in California. So if you go open a corp in Delaware, and you live in California, you're going to need a registered agent in Delaware. If you live in California and open a corp or an LLC in California, you're going to need a registered agent in California. Now, if you do live in a state where you've opened the corp, which I always recommend, a lot of people think you're supposed to open corps in Delaware no matter what state you live in. That whole thing is, in my opinion, a waste of time and money for people, because regardless of what state you open your corp in, if you're going to operate in the state you live, you then have to create a secondary version of the corp called a foreign entity in your own state, and now you're just paying basically annual state filing fees in both states, possibly taxes in both states, and the amount of asset protection you get from doing that is very limited, if non-existent, for small entities. Maybe if you're a multinational publicly traded company, having a corporate office in Delaware is of some benefit. Anyway, in this case, the one of the partners, this is a couple, so they both co-own their entity. One of the co-owners, one of the couple, is the registered agent, and it's their home address, and they act as their own registered agent, which saves them money. And the registered agent basically is the designated individual in the state where they will send all pertinent, tax-related Secretary of State notices. If someone sues you, they'll hopefully that doesn't happen. It's rare, but if someone were to sue you, the paperwork for that would go to the registered agent. So it's got to be someone in the state that can get mail and forward it on. If you don't want to do it yourself, you can hire a third-party registered agent. Okay, type of business. Whatever the type of business you are, you put that in here. In this case, creative consulting services. Email opt-in for notifications. I say yes. You put in the email you want in there. So this will limit the actual paperwork you get in the mail. Some stuff still would come in paper form, but a lot of the notices just come in email. And honestly, you don't get that many. If you do your annual statement of information and you pay your annual tax on time, generally you don't get that many communications. Labor judgment. Does an officer or director of this have an outstanding final judgment issued from the Division of Labor Standards, blah, blah, blah. No, in our case. None of my clients have ever had to answer yes to that, so I don't really know much about that question, but obviously it's being asked. Okay, so that's it. It's basically like, who are the officers? Who are the directors? What are their addresses? What is the corporate office? What's the mailing address? Who's the registered agent? That's really all the information you're providing. And the state wants you to keep this information updated on an annual or biannual basis, depending if you're an Inc. or an LLC. Go through, confirm all the information is good. And then by signing, I affirm this is true. You add your name for the signature. Today. And go to the next step. Processing fees. So here, basically, it's saying it's $25, for the processing fee. It asks if you want a certified copy, meaning do you want to get a paper copy in the mail with a stamp on it for some reason. I've never needed that, but maybe if you have a need for that, you would check yes, and that would add $5 more. Go to the next step. File online. Cool. And then it is going to ask you for your credit card info. So we're going to put that info in, process the credit card, and it'll be done. And then you will get a email confirmation of the statement of information being filed to the email address that you put in there inside that process. So hopefully that's helpful for anyone who's looking to do this. It's pretty simple, and if you have any questions, I guess you can throw a comment below. Thanks very much. See ya.